Before parking sensors, touchscreens, and cars that practically drive themselves, life on Britain's roads was a lot simpler. The 1990s were a golden era for the everyday family car, practical machines that filled every driveway, every school run, every motorway service station from Carlisle to Cornwall. Whether you grew up in the back seat of one of these or you just spotted them on your street every single morning, these cars were woven into the fabric of British life. If you enjoy this kind of content, smash that like button and subscribe to Britain Rewind. And stay with us, because number 1 absolutely dominated Britain in a way nobody quite expected. Number 10, Rover 200. The Rover 200 arrived in its most popular form in 1989 and carried strongly into the early 1990s as one of the few genuinely British family cars still standing. Powered by a range of modest 1.4 and 1.6-litre engines, it offered a smooth, refined drive that felt a step above your average hatchback. People bought it because it carried the Rover badge, and in Britain, that badge still meant something. It felt like a proper car. You saw them parked outside terraced houses and semi-detached homes up and down the country. Rover sold over 200,000 units of the Series 2 run in the UK alone. It was British motoring pride in a practical shell. Number 9, Ford car. Ford launched the car in 1996 and Britain fell for it almost immediately. Designed with bold, rounded styling that looked like nothing else on the road at the time, it was powered by a modest 1.3-litre engine and was aimed squarely at young drivers and small families wanting affordable city transport. It was cheap to run, easy to park, and genuinely cheerful to look at. You saw cars everywhere, outside universities, outside supermarkets, tucked into tiny gaps on busy high streets. Ford shifted over 100,000 cars in the UK within its first 2 years on sale. Small in size, but it left a surprisingly big impression on British roads. Number 8, Nissan Micra. The second-generation Nissan Micra launched in 1992, and here is something worth knowing: it was built right here in Britain, at Nissan's Sunderland plant, which was rapidly becoming one of the most productive car factories in all of Europe. The Micra came with a 1.0 or 1.3-litre engine, was incredibly reliable, and cost very little to insure or maintain. That combination made it an absolute favourite with first-time buyers, young families, and anyone who just needed a dependable car without any drama. It won European Car of the Year in 1993. The Sunderland plant produced well over 1 million Micras over its lifetime. Reliable, affordable, and proudly made on British soil. Number 7, Rover 400. The Rover 400 launched in 1990 as a joint venture between Rover and Honda, sharing its platform with the Honda Concerto. Available as a saloon or hatchback, it came with 1.4, 1.6, and 1.8-litre engines and offered a level of quality and refinement that stood out in its class. People who bought the Rover 400 wanted something that felt a little more sophisticated than a standard fleet car, something with a touch of character. Company drivers and families alike chose it for its comfortable ride and solid build. Rover managed strong sales throughout the early 1990s, keeping the badge relevant at a time when British manufacturing was under serious pressure. Number 6, Vauxhall Frontier. The Vauxhall Frontier arrived in 1991 and tapped into something Britain did not quite know it wanted yet: a proper family SUV at an accessible price. Available as a 3- or 5-door, it came with petrol and diesel engine options and offered genuine off-road capability alongside enough space for a family and their luggage. People bought it because it felt rugged and adventurous without costing Land Rover money. You started seeing them on school runs and weekend camping trips all through the mid-1990s. Vauxhall sold over 80,000 Frontiers in the UK across its production run. It was an early sign that British families were beginning to think differently about what a family car could be. Now, before we get into the top 5, I want to give you a little warning. One car coming up did not just sell well in Britain. It became a political symbol, a cultural shorthand, and the very definition of the 1990s British family. You probably already have a guess. But trust me, the full story is worth hearing. Number 5. Vauxhall Vectra. Vauxhall replaced the aging Cavalier with the Vectra in 1995, and while it divided opinion on looks, it sold in enormous numbers across Britain almost instantly. Offered as a hatchback, saloon, and estate, with engines ranging from 1.6 to 2.0 litres, the Vectra was a solid, sensible, no-nonsense family car. It was the kind of car that company fleets loved and practical families appreciated. You saw fleets of them in rental car parks and on motorway slip roads without even noticing. Vauxhall sold over 300,000 Vectras in the UK across the first generation. It may not have been exciting, but it was dependable, and in the 1990s, dependable sold. Number 4. Vauxhall Cavalere. The Vauxhall Cavalere had been a cornerstone of British family motoring since the 1970s, and its final generation carried that legacy deep into the 1990s before bowing out in 1995. Available with a wide range of 1.4 to 2.0-litre engines including a punchy turbo version, it was the go-to choice for both company car drivers and family buyers across the country. The Cavalier felt modern, competent, and aspirational without being out of reach. It was the classic dad car of its generation, reliable, roomy, and absolutely everywhere you looked. Vauxhall built over 1.1 million Cavaliers across all generations. Few cars defined the British middle-class driveway quite so completely. Number 3. Ford Escort. The Ford Escort had been part of British family life since 1968, and by the 1990s it had become something close to a national institution. The 5th and 6th generation models carried the Escort through the decade with a range of 1.3 to 1.8-litre engines, familiar styling, and a price point that was simply hard to argue with. For millions of British families, the Escort was not just a car, it was a rite of passage. It was the first car many people learned to drive in, the car that took children to school for years, the car that never really let you down. Ford sold over 4.1 million Escorts across its UK lifetime. Some cars earned their legend honestly. Number 2. Vauxhall Astra. The Vauxhall Astra spent the entire 1990s as one of the most consistently popular family cars in Britain, and its reputation was built on something simple: it just worked. The 3rd and 4th generation Astras offered hatchback, saloon, and estate body styles with engines ranging from 1.2 to 2.0 litres, making it endlessly adaptable for all kinds of buyers. Young families, first-time buyers, fleet managers, the Astra served them all without complaint. It was the kind of car that became invisible because it was so ordinary, and yet that very ordinariness was its greatest strength. Vauxhall sold over 300,000 Astras per year at its peak in Britain. It was everywhere, it was trusted, and Britain genuinely loved it. Number 1. Ford Mondeo. When the Ford Mondeo launched in 1993, it did not just arrive, it took over. Replacing the Sierra with a thoroughly modern, aerodynamic design and a range of smooth 1.6 to 2.5-litre engines, the Mondeo was sharper, quieter, and more refined than almost anything in its class. But what made it truly remarkable was what it came to represent. By the mid-1990s, political commentators coined the phrase Mondeo man, shorthand for the ordinary, aspirational, hard-working British family voter that every party was chasing. The Mondeo was not just a car, it was a cultural snapshot of an entire generation. Ford sold over 1.8 million Mondeos in the UK across the first 2 generations. Comfortable, capable, and inescapable, the Mondeo earned its crown completely, and Britain gave it willingly. Looking back at these 10 cars, what strikes you is how much they had in common. They were not glamorous. They were not fast. They were not trying to impress anyone. They were simply built to move British families from one place to another, reliably, affordably, and without any fuss. These were the cars that sat on driveways on Sunday mornings, loaded up for trips to the seaside or the garden centre. They were the cars that took children to their first day of school and parents to jobs they held for 20 years. They shaped how Britain moved, how Britain lived, and in many ways, how Britain felt. Simple machines, but they carried something far more important than luggage. That is our countdown of the 10 best British family cars of the 1990s. If you enjoyed this, please give the video a like, it genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe to Britain Rewind so you never miss a video. Now we want to hear from you, which of these cars do you remember most? Drop it in the comments, and go check out another video while you are here. Until next time.